you're not selling because you think the market's going to crash. You're not selling because you're trying to time the market per se. This decision was
Mm.
more based out of you're evaluating, does it make sense to stay in the portfolio as a long-term investment? And because the cash flow number is slower, we're selling this to redeploy it into something that you will want to hold on to for a longer period of time, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think it's to something that hold on a longer period of time, and as long as generating the cash flow that makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, for us, it was almost more of a defensive move. I think when I was thinking of it initially, it was like, let's see if we can get into an investment that creates more cash flow because of the concern of if things, you know,
Yeah.
turn south. That was kind of where it initially started from. And then, yes, no lazy money and all those kind of things got into
Yeah.
place. So now we're looking to, how can we, um, you know, build equity and cash flow,
Yeah.
and then hopefully refinance and pull out our investment.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's where, that's where we want to try to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you had created this same result in terms of the equity you built in this property on a duplex or a triplex, something with a higher cash flow, instead of selling, you could have simply refinanced it and redeployed it. But on this property,
Yes.
if you had pulled out 100, 200 grand in equity, you would then be deeply into the negative side, right? Which long term, like it can work in some situations. I've done it actually. So I refinanced two of my single family homes to buy this fourplex that I'm living in now. But we sold those two single family homes because we didn't like to own negative cash flowing properties, right? It
Right.
didn't that wasn't something that we wanted to hold on to long term. And I think your perspective it's very different from a lot of I would say almost newer investors that may have a little bit more hype where they're super excited. Like we are excited still, but we
Oh
have
yeah.
a grounded sort of look on real estate. And we know that we may not have experienced it personally, but we know that real estate has its times where things are tough, right? And if we look at the States, if we look at even in the late 1980s in Canada, or even if you look right now in Alberta, right? Real estate can have its up to a decade of tough times, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
between peak, bottom, and then peak again,
Recovery. Yeah.
right? So knowing that are like repositioning your investment portfolio to own properties that have a stronger cash flow will give you hopefully the strength to go through any of those tough times if they come in the future, right?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's the peace of mind. You don't have to watch headlines as much anymore and things like that. Like
Yeah.
I think, when I first got involved in real estate, the mindset at that time was just get an asset, just get in, and as long as it wasn't killing you, even if at that time it was like, even if it was a little bit negative, but I had no money in, like I didn't pay the
Yeah.
20 down. Um, I thought it was still better if I had to chip in a little bit here and there
Yep.
because I still didn't have to put out that $72,000. I might have had
Yep.
to put out $1,500 here or 100, but it didn't really work out to that same initial hit. Um, and then recently, probably over the last 2 years, the mindset's kind of shifted where I've kind of come back. Like I've got a good base. I'm comfortable with the amount of properties that we do have. Now it's just a matter of, okay, is it working the way we need it to work now?
Mhm.
So now we're starting to look to make sure that the properties are producing income. All of them are in good neighborhoods, and those kinds of qualities.
Yeah. And I guess COVID for both of us was a good wake up call to a certain degree, right? It made us reevaluate like how sound is our investments and I guess even our income, right? Like even
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's been a big one. Like I remember the first couple of weeks after the lockdown started, like basically all my clients were saying we're just gonna wait a little bit to see how this goes, right? And very justifiable. But then I had to evaluate. Wait a second. So my income, I didn't know how long it was gonna last.
yeah.
Luckily, it didn't last too long. But like it can stop if the market has a dive, right? Like people get fearful and things can stop for a short or even potentially a longer period of time. Who knows, right? So then if you have that happen and you have a portfolio that is not cash flow positive, you're in a real hard
Yeah,
time, right?
for
So
sure. or all it takes is like the furnace to go and you have to come up with, X amount of
Yeah.
$1,000 to get it replaced at an untimely time for you personally. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always more thinking from a plan of defense
Mm,
or plan B, plan C than I am of, worrying about the appreciation. I
yeah.
keep my eye on, those kinds of things and what the market's doing, of course, but I'm always more concerned about, are we protecting ourselves? Last thing I want is my portfolio to be a burden.
Yes.
It's supposed to be something that's supposed to provide opportunities and things like that for me and my family. And I don't, so I've got enough burdens going on right now. So enough things going on. So we try to make sure we're structuring this the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I was just having a conversation earlier today, and one of the things I told this person I was speaking with is my investment strategy is now I need to buy properties with enough cash flow that I can pay a property manager because I don't want to deal with
Yeah,
it anymore. So
yeah,
like if
yeah.
it can't cover the cost of a property manager, I'm not interested because I don't want a part-time job, right? Which is different than when I got started, right? When I got started, like you're learning, it's a new experience. You want to take it all in. And sometimes if you don't have much money to invest or if you're not ready to do a renovation, to do a conversion project, maybe you have to buy like I think the property you bought at the time you bought it was the perfect fit, right? Something to
Mhm.
get you in the game, single family, cover its costs, great
Easy to
tenant
manage.
profile.
Yeah, easy to manage. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, now you're shifting, but luckily the new properties you're purchasing have that margin of cash flow that it can support a property manager if you choose to. So you can actually take a step back if you want to not kind of do the day-to-day work, right? Which honestly, it's like like I started investing in 2013. I only started to really have property management in the last year, and
Okay.
now it's like everything is handed
Us.
off.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
like
We're working towards that. We still manage a couple of properties ourselves.
yeah.
And we have a couple that are taken care of by a property manager, and we're working towards that same
Yeah.
thing.
It's honestly hard to explain it from a financial perspective because you can always look at it as, hey, you can save this much cash flow, it's extra money in your pocket. But from an emotional perspective, just the weight that's not on your shoulders to
Yeah.
know that if something goes wrong on a Sunday night, someone else is taking that call, someone else is calling the plumber to go there or deal with it, and you just obviously you get the bill afterwards, but I'd rather get the bill afterwards than
You have to
deal with
go
it
through.
and get the bill afterwards.
Well, it's the opportunity cost of your time, right? And
Yeah.
inevitably, these things come up at the few times that it does happen. Like knock on wood, and I think that goes towards buying good properties in good neighborhoods and maintaining your properties that you
Yeah.
don't have, you know, big issues
Mm.
frequently, but inevitably you do have something, and
Yeah.
you're just for whatever reason that one thing that does happens at the like you're totally busy or you're in a meeting at work or you can't get to it. So
Yeah. I think one, I remember clearly I was at a showing with a client, not a showing, like a one of those walkthroughs, right? It was just before a long weekend. We had plans to go to a cottage
yeah,
and we find out that water is leaking from one apartment in our fourplex into the other apartment.
of
And I was
course.
like, call the property manager. Hey, water's leaking from one unit to the other. Go check it out. Make sure it's good. And we literally just left. We went on our cottage and like didn't think about it the whole weekend. Like they're gonna deal with it. They're gonna fix it. It may be terrible. It may not be, but they're gonna deal with it. I'm just
Sure.
gonna learn what happens after the fact, right? And
Yeah. I
it's
think
those moments that just really show the value of it, right? Because it's
yeah,
not just the monthly. It's like that day I would have lost that vacation if I
yeah,
had to deal with
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. I think I won't say I enjoy, but I think it was good for me to go through the process of managing the property
Mm,
so that you gain an
absolutely.
appreciation and an understanding and how you're dealing with people, and it just helps you understand the things that go wrong. And
Yeah.
now that I have a property manager, when I'm speaking with my property manager about issues, I have a better way of
Mm,
responding because I kind of understand
yeah.
the ins and outs on what's happening and what to make a fuss over and what to let
Yeah.
go and just say, yeah, fix it, replace it, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. it is important, I think, in the beginning to do some of it yourself to get an understanding what's involved in finding a tenant, what's involved in sort of the day-to-day management. Because like some people look at property management as, hey, they're charging me this monthly amount even if nothing happens.
Mhm.
But it's kind of like being on call at a job, that whenever something goes wrong, they're going to call you with problems. Yes, you have to pay them something, but sometimes on some months there's like 10 problems that happen and they're dealing with all of that for that same small amount, right? So it
Right.
it kind of goes both ways. Even for myself, it's sort of the maturing of being an investor to now getting to this point where now every next purchase is going to have property management and
Yes.
they're going to deal with it, and it's going to free up just the mental space to just think about purchasing more, or even go on vacation, or like do whatever I want without my portfolio being a burden, right? The same way that negative cash flow is a burden, I think. Anyways, this this has gone on a bit of a tangent, but I
Yeah.
think it's something important to say, because if you're working, right, you have like, I think it's different if you're really trying to live off your portfolio, then you have to really sort of watch your costs not to spend too much. And that may be a
Yes.
scenario that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Even with my whole portfolio, like I'm trying and I'm getting better at it, but it has its own place where I need it to sit, and I can't have it invading too much more of the other things that are going on.
yeah,
So, um, I'm a firm believer in, like, I'm just going to build my team around me of people that I really trust, and then just let them do their thing so that I can spend my time doing other things. And I'm not running after people chasing over nickels and dimes and those kinds of things. I'm just trying to,
yeah,
like, as long as everything's set, I trust the people I work with. I think your team is your most important, from your mortgage broker, your agent, to your tradesman. For me, that's been a big help in helping
mm,
me continue to develop and to grow my portfolio.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, speaking of trust, I think the three properties I've helped you purchase, y- all three of them, I sent you the deal, you
Yeah,
looked at it. Two of them you came to see it. One of them you put the offer. Like the Hamilton one, did you see it before? I think we may have put an inspection condition. Maybe.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I don't think I saw that one until after we walked it down.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of went off it, and that was off a whim too. That was on a, like a
Well, that
we were,
was a funny deal, right? Because I had another client get it under contract, and then they decided to back out, and I was
yeah,
like, "Why are you backing out? This is such a good deal." And then the agent was telling me that, "Hey, they just want this sold. Like they're willing to even take a lesser price than what we offered, I think." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I called you up and like, "I know you like Hamilton. There's this deal that is
yeah.
going to go back on the market. I think if we offer now, we can get this price. Are you in?" You're like, yeah, it's a good neighborhood. It's near our other property, and we're like, okay, let's go for it.
That was because I think at the time we were in Welland looking at other properties to
Yeah,
try to find what was going on, and that was great. That
yeah.
was kind of like on the way home. We were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Timing really worked out, right? Because we bought this 570 ish, and it already had a basement apartment. It needed to be legalized, and
Yeah,
now on the mountain in that area, probably legal duplexes are selling for like 800, maybe even 850, right?
right.
So,
Yeah,
um,
and that's
when,
another one that's in a good neighborhood and
yeah,
is close to the one that we just sold.
yeah.
So we're happy with that one as well. So, yeah.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't we take this a little bit of a full circle? So, from a personal perspective,
Mhm.
how has real estate investing, I guess the results you've created with your investing,
Yeah.
how has that shaped maybe your personal experience? Like, does it give you any confidence for, knowing that your future is, I guess, somewhat more secure, right? That you've built this nest egg, you've built some results. Like, what's been the personal almost results that you've felt as a result of going through all of this?
Like, you know what? I think it's going to change now that I've sold the house and I've seen the benefits, like the tangible benefits, right? Like everything else up to this point has been all,
on
it's,
paper, right? Yeah.
yeah, or it's accurate, but you don't have access to it. Like I can't actually physically use it. I can, but it's not readily available. It's not something I can touch and feel. And now that we've gone through this process, it's now turned into something that's real. And I can say, hey, this is actually now building something else, whether
Mm.
we're going to use it to turn it into another investment property, but we could have done a whole host of things that,
Yeah.
other things with that. So I think at that point, it gives you that reassurance that, the things that we're doing, it's the right thing for us. It's going to build the things that we are looking for in the future for me and my family. And so, I'm extremely grateful for, taking that first step, although it took me like several years to do it. Once now that I'm on that path, it's been great.